All right, so we're down here in the ground zero of Century Martial Arts, and pretty excited about being here. I've got a sentimental, personal relationship with this company, with the guy that started it. I was introduced to Mike by one of my senseis, Dr. Ron Tripp, and I guess he became my friend. Mike Sr., as a friend to Dr. Ron Tripp, and then it just actually grew. And so every time I would come to Oklahoma City, I would try to meet with Mr. Dillard and have lunch or whatever, just because of what I know he built on his own, the place where we're at right now. And then in that relationship, I met this guy. Mike.
I still go by Mikey from a lot. We got a lot of Mikes in our company and in our family. So
yeah, you're just like a man's man. So when I call you Mikey, it seems weird. But so in the process of the relationship of getting to know your dad and falling in love with him as a mentor of mine, I met you. And yep. I don't really know when that was. I've been trying to figure that out, but let's back up and let's kind of figure out. So tell us how your dad started this, when this started, how it started.
So our company really started a long time ago, and I think with my father, because he had some stuff happen in his childhood that wanted him to get involved in martial arts.
Oh, awesome.
My family, my grandfather, they grew up rather poor. He was very fortunate in kind of the later part of his life.
So in
their childhood, they grew up in the south side of Oklahoma City.
Oh, they are from here then. Okay, awesome.
And my grandpa owned a Safeway store.
Oh, okay, cool.
He owned and operated that. And one day when my grandma was there and my grandpa was not, somebody came in and they held up the Safeway store, and they kind of held them all ransom, and because he couldn't get into the safe. And so he sent one of the kids down in my grandma's wedding ring and had them delivered to my grandpa and said, "Hey, I've got your family. Need you to come down here and unlock the safe." And that scared him a lot, understandably.
How old was your dad then?
I don't know his age at that point, but he was, around 10 years old. He was
They were preteen.
Preteen. Very, very young kid. And I think that instilled a lot of
absolutely,
wanting to protect his family whenever he got older. And so fast forward, in college, he really started wrestling and doing martial arts at OSU.
Oh, okay.
He was the first person in our family to go to college, get his college degree. So when he graduated, he still had been training a lot, and he had gotten his black belt, but he hadn't really gone down, creating this business yet. And he was the first person in our family to graduate.
All the years I've known your dad, I had no idea he wrestled. I just thought he was a karate kicking dude. That's awesome.
Yeah. And he was a bouncer, like most martial artists are, in college just to make money. And so when he graduated with an accounting degree. It was pre-computer era, so he worked for Kerr-McGee Oil Company in Oklahoma, which is a big oil company here back in the day. And they sent him overseas to go work in an offshore oil rig and do currency conversions, kind of a boring job.
Okay.
And during that time, he spent a lot of time training, and he somehow made his way during that period over to Korea to train Taekwondo. And I think that's where a lot of this started coming. He was like, this is a pretty fundamental thing in my life.
So he got the good stuff.
Yeah.
Especially back in that era.
Very intense training.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
He has a lot of great stories about that. But at one point in time, he quits his job from Kerr-McGee, decides he's going to start a martial arts company. Grandpa gets furious because the first person in our family to graduate college has now quit their laid-back job. Bought a whole bunch of martial arts uniforms to ship back to the U.S. and keep in their garage. And so he filled up my grandpa's garage and started doing tournament circuit and training and just sold uniforms kind of.
So he started in his 20s then, probably, time frame wise.
Yeah, mid-20s. And that became his life. And so he started training with the USA team, and along the way, that's where he met Chuck Norris. And Chuck Norris became a big part of our company because he's one of our first endorsements. Nice. And Joe Lewis and Bill Wallace, all those guys were a part of that USA team. And those guys were his endorsers. So he would travel the country, try to go to as many tournaments as possible, sell uniforms kind of at the back of his van, although it sounds a little worse than it was.
No, it sounds awesome.
He would take them to each tournament and try to sell them as he could. And he used to take out the yellow pages and rip all the karate schools out in every single town the tournaments were in, and do as many mailers and phone calls as he possibly could. and that's the century was born.
The original internet, the Yellow Pages.
Yes, exactly. And then 1976 is when we really became incorporated, and shortly after that, I think 1978, 1979 was when moved into this facility that we're in right now.
So was this facility, and it's huge, was it already here and it was something else?
It was much smaller, and so there was actually
built on?
Yeah, just a 1/4 of it was here.
Was it like an old warehouse or
It
something?
was this building, this part that's right outside the walls were in this room, and we had some sewing floor and cutting tables and things like that, and we just started sewing uniforms here, started making equipment, and then training bags and stuff came much later on, but the company was born, and we had our first endorsements, and kind of off to the races.
So we'll back up. So what was it like? I know my daughter, she's 10, she'll be 11 in 2 weeks, through my martial arts journey and being a trainer for 25 years. She's been around incredible people. She's been around UFC guys. She's been around lifelong martial artists. She's been around movie and radio stars, and she's just been around dynamic people that she probably, the average 10-year-old doesn't get to meet. And so her standard of life and discipline, she took her first steps on my tatami mats at my gym. And I just remember her, she was just learning to walk and talk, and she walked up one day, we were videoing her, and she just stopped at the mats and said, "Us!" at like 2 years old. I play that all the time. But you grew up like that. So what was it like? I mean, did you, Chuck Norris, I mean, you've been around all these great guys. So that had to have influenced you in some way as a person.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, those guys, I looked up to them a lot, but they were not, I didn't know who they were or what they were doing. To me, they were just normal, the guys we saw all the time. I mean,
it was a norm.
In particular, Chuck
it's a
Norris.
Normal day to hang out with Chuck Norris.
In particular, Chuck Norris. I was in a lot of like photo shoots and stuff like that when I was younger here, because everything we do is in house, and it sounds like, oh, you were with Chuck Norris now, but back then, it was just the guy we always had here, Darren, who took photos, and one day I was with Chuck Norris. He was just Uncle Chuck to me, so I guess that was really cool. But we took photos and stuff. When he came in town, I didn't get a lot of time to train with him until later on, and that became a special deal. But we weren't getting to do privates and things like that.
Right.
My father didn't ever want any son and father relationship in terms of training in particular. I think it's very hard to sometimes train your kids, as I know as a father now.
Right.
They're obviously immediately defiant. And in martial arts, it's like we have this respect thing, so you have to say yes sir, no sir.
Right.
And that becomes very confrontational very quickly. I'm finding out as a father as well. And so my father always had me train outside of our gym and outside of other places as well. So I kind of had a full rounded experience. When I went to outside places, I found that I was kind of not bragging about myself. It's just that I was exposed to it when I was little, and so I would always be a little further ahead than most people because I would just know second nature, having done these things with my own father.
Right.
But as it developed, just being around those guys, you just get to see a level of like grit and kind of unrelenting.
So in my mind, I was just thinking, tell me about. Because I feel like I'm an old guy now, and not in body and mindset, but in thought and maybe purpose. Like, I get so aggravated because I feel like the martial arts aspect of martial arts is becoming lackadaisious. It's going away. It's not marketable. Money is the key thing now, and so, I mean, I haven't got to meet Chuck Norris. That's on my bucket list, but even at my age and whatever I've accomplished, I would still feel humbled if he walked in the room.
Yeah.
I would, everything, I mean, even guys, I call you sir. I think I'm old. I don't want to say how old I am, but I mean, it's just, it becomes embedded in you.
Yeah.
And so that, and the fact that I've griped for years about guys don't have grit anymore. I personally am falling in love with training girls because they seem to have more grit, less ego, and they want to try harder because it's so new to them. I mean, what was it like being around like Superfoot Wallace, and like explain the difference between a Chuck Norris and a guy who may be good in competing now, like, because you've got to be around that guy.
I just don't think that they're, well, one, they're all rooted in tradition. And so the bowing on and off the mat, yes sir, no sir, all that stuff it's second nature, and it's not. It's interesting when you have somebody who doesn't. I would never call Chuck Norris Carlos, which is his first name.
Right.
I would always call him Mr. Norris, and
Yeah.
he would do the same to me.
Yeah, even though
I'm like 7.
He's old enough to be your grandpa.
You can call me my first name, but I feel like he's got all those guys have that similar characteristic, which is not what you find in gyms.
How have we lost
I feel
that?
like some schools are even. They're like, should we even bow in and bow out? And we're like, yes, you absolutely have to bow in and bow out. We have to bow to get on the mat, and that stuff shouldn't go away. But they're having a hard time struggling with it because further you get from the root of the actual art creation, kind of this stuff starts to go away. But martial arts has kept it around for a long time, and I think it has to keep.
And what about in your, as a kid to now? Because you do train currently, and you hold training sessions here for your employees, and you travel to gyms. What do you see that's like just the mindset on training hard and the importance of training?
It's unfortunately becoming, I feel like, there's just a very big separation between people that train really hard and the general population. And the general population, when they get into it, they kind of see the UFC and they see all these things and they think, that's what I want to do. And then they get a little taste of it and they're like, nah, I'm not, you guys are crazy. And like, it's not really crazy. They've just never really tried hard and experienced this in this way. Like going to a fight, it's not scary. I mean, you should have this innate way of protecting yourself, but no one's gonna. If you're in a training to go partake in a fight, you're not gonna get injured for the rest of your life, kind of thing. That seems to be like the general public thinks.
Yeah.
You are going to have a deformity after you fight. Like no, you can do this every single day. I go to.
I don't know. This face is a little deformed, but
in our gym outside of this that I train at American Top 2, we got lawyers and doctors. I mean, they go very intense and everyone's fine. I mean, some guys are 70 years old and they're kicking my ass. So.
But in the right gym, ran by the right people.
Right. But the unfortunate deal where I was going with that is that sometimes those aren't the ones that make the most money, and it's hard out here to run a successful gym and be hardcore.
Yeah,
have the funding and keep everything in place. So what you get is even guys that want to set out to have a really intense, proper gym, you're starting to see them kind of water things down and get less and less because they've got to pay the bills. Right. And so a little bit of part of our society is going that way, and they're unfortunately
a little
being
part.
A victim of it.
Yeah. So one last thing about Chuck. So people, I mean, I don't know if there's anybody who has more memes and more quotes and more sayings, but if Chuck was in his prime now with his training and his, because people don't really understand, like even Bruce Lee, as far back as Bruce Lee and Chuck when he was younger, that's kind of the same era. They were the first real mixed martial artists. Everybody looks at Chuck like he's just a karate guy, or Bruce Lee was just a Jeet Kune Do, but they were the first, and I use these two words very strongly because they're overused now, and I don't even think they should be used for what's going on in the UFC. But they were true mixed martial artists. In saying that, they did have a very big crossover in what they trained in, and they were truly martial artists. They weren't just mixed. I wish they would change MMA to MFA, mixed fighting arts, because as you just said, there's not a lot of martial artists. If you look at the UFC and stuff, the respect, now it's, heading towards WWE. They want you to talk crap. No one's respectful. I remember you were probably younger, but I remember when guys would go to war and then they get on their knees and they're hugging, like the big soccer that just happened this last weekend. I mean, they're on their knees hugging each other and thanking each other for showing up and total respect to each other. They weren't talking about people's moms and girlfriends and calling each other, bitch this. And so how do you think if that era of martial artists, your dad's era, if those guys were competing in MMA now, how do you think that they would have been comparable and been able to compete?
Difficult question. I feel like that's a trap.
Because you're time traveling, yeah.
I don't think that anyone can compete when you look at like the evolution of a sport like that. You can't throw.
Let's take MMA and put it back then.
If you put it back then, I mean, those would be the guys that are competing in it,
right?
And then would be winning. Let's put it
that way. Okay, that's
so.
If
MMA happened in that time
in the '70s,
it would have been the
80s.
Chuck Norris's, the Joe Louis. Those guys would have been competing in it,
right?
And jumping right in the middle, and they would have done very well. But I think a lot of people don't realize that. I was talking to the Machado brothers, came here, and they had a seminar a couple months ago, and my father and Mr. Norris helped get the Machados into the country and get their green cards and stuff when they first came. And they were talking to me about, I mean, they were all friends and very grateful.
That's
and
awesome.
They didn't train those. Chuck didn't train jiu-jitsu all the time, though. He's a black belt in jiu-jitsu. But he really is from those guys. And I talked to them about it, and you're like, yeah, I mean, he didn't want to do it, but he realized that was a hole in what he did, and so he went and trained, and they said he genuinely has his black belt in jiu-jitsu. Took him a very long time to get it.
Again, that just, man, you
But
pray
back
for those
then,
guys.
Those gyms and how they interact with each other. I mean, they always were going to each other's gym.
Right.
They told me all these story after story about them just showing up. I mean, sometimes it was in bad blood and in good blood, and sometimes it was just, hey, we're going to come over and we're just going to have a sparring. You guys are going to do jiu-jitsu, and I'm going to
Try to kick your head
kickboxing,
off.
and we're just going to see who wins.
That's
But
awesome.
that's how it was back then.
Right.
So I think a lot more of that was going on. They just didn't have it formalized as a sport.
Right. And
It was an exchange of ideas.
yeah. And I just, I don't know. I feel like I'm on that bubble where, I've changed my business model and plans, and I had, dreams of a huge academy and bringing people. I have people from around the world want to come train with me, and being where I'm at, geography wise, it's different too. I don't want to go down that road yet, but so your dad, I'm a big fan of what would be like our forefathers or grandfathers in martial arts. And so hearing behind the scenes about somebody like, Chuck Norris and all those guys, it's just I don't think they're getting the credit. I mean, people look at them as just these entities they make funny memes about. But those guys, and then of course the Chuck Norris movies and all that, the B movies and stuff. But none of us would be doing what we're doing if it wasn't for your dad's era and the Chuck Norrises and the Bruce Lees. Like, Chuck Norris, Bruce Lee, Muhammad Ali, as a kind of a poor country kid, like that's what I had. Like I beat up army duffel bags hanging from the tree. I mean, I tried to do the Bruce Lee kicks and the Chuck Norris kicks, and I couldn't afford martial arts. And now I just see it change. But I don't know how. Do you think we'll ever get back to the way it was with the true mindset and the wanting to train and the respect?
You see guys like they keep coming out, it's just there's a lot of noise right now. And I think some of those guys talk that way and show up in media because they're encouraged and paid to do so. But guys like Alex Pereira, he's he's coming out. He's incredibly respectful, and he is I don't think he was well-rounded in his jiu-jitsu and everything, but he's doing a good job of coming back and trying to train all those things. He's got Glover, who is a great coach as well. He's one of our friends. He came from the Gameness acquisition. That was a good relationship. It's picked up. So there's guys out there that are trying to do it the right way, the George St. Pierre's of the world.
I was just, in my head just now, I was thinking, man, look back at the first, like George St. Pierre, even being around him in person, like he's that guy. He's respectful. He's quite. Everybody's like, oh, it's because he doesn't speak good English. He's very respectful too. Like whether he has a strong accent or not, he's respectful to everybody. And even Randy Couture, like not being a martial artist, like being around him, he's so soft spoken. Even back in his prime when I've been around him, and he call you and I, sir, and he acts like he's happy to be around us. And I'm just like, what the, and nobody knew that. He's just a wrestler that went to OSU and beat people up. But he was he had the martial artist mindset, behavior. So give me a few words off the top of your head, thinking about where you come from. What are some words that describe a martial artist?
Well, we use them here. They're centuries. Core values. We teach all our employees them as well. So for us, it's respect, humility, tenacity.
That's awesome.
We say driven to excellence, but kind of translates to always be perfecting.
Right.
And then courage.
Awesome.
Because I think it takes a lot of our president always says this as well, but the reality is that it takes a lot of courage for anybody to get involved in martial arts, and I think that they sell themselves short. But a real good instructor helps put courage or encourage people to get them on the mats and to change. Because we also say here that martial arts will change your lives. We exist to inspire people to experience the life-changing benefits of martial arts is our actual motto.
I think a lot of gyms are getting away from that. Even
I think so, too.
I know money trains or karate and taekwondo gyms, but I've spent 25 years trying to empower and help people, and I just think that one, investing in people and trying to help them and change them is a heartbreaking, stupid business plan. It's good humanitarianly and being a man of God, but it's tough to run a gym, like you said, doing that. But those are character traits we just got to get back as a country. My grandfathers both had those traits, and they never did martial arts at all.
Yeah.
It was just how they did back then. So back then, so your dad's hanging around Chuck Norris, and he went up to Korea, and then so he filled the garage, and he comes home, and then he started going to tournaments and selling what he shipped here.
Yep. And then the business was born. We started manufacturing here, and then things started really evolving when we came out with freestanding punching bags. So there's a lot of them now in the market, but Century was the first people to create those water-filled base punching bags that we all know and love.
Right.
And then the evolution of that generated Bob, which is a big part of our company as well.
You guys are the founders of Bob. You guys built Bob.
We are.
So your dad told me this, and I don't know if you I may have told you this. So one of my senseis, and man, I love and respect, he's local here. The Gracies deny it, but he actually beat Hickson Gracie. And in a match, Dr. Ron Tripp. So your dad told me, we were walking around the plant one day, and he said, "Hey, you know about Bob?" And I'm thinking, I don't know, an employee, or I'm trying to think of who Bob would be. And there's an area where there was a bunch of those freestanding deals. He was like, "Bob," and I'm like, I don't understand, And he's like, "Look at him." And so, and for those of you who don't know, like his dad is he's the kind of guy I love. He's just kind of gruff and to the point and kind of a dry sense of humor, Yeah. And he's like, "Does he look familiar?" I'm looking at this rubber Bob, and I've probably had 6 or 8 of them in my gyms over the years. And he goes, "You know that guy?" And I'm still trying to think of, here's the guy that I love spending time with. What is this conversation? And then he said, I made his face to look like Dr. Ron Tripp's face.
I don't know about that.
Did you? To this moment right now, I've told everybody. In fact, there's times I'll be stupid and I'll take a picture next to one of my Bobs in the gym. I'm like, "Look, I'm punching you in the face, or I'm real naked choking you." But he told me that he
may have had some inspiration drawn from that. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But the real thing about Bob, which stands for Body Opponent Bag, is that it's a perfectly anatomical person. So.
Right.
I mean, they went through a lot of work to make sure that like his muscles and everything are technically perfect.
Right.
In size ratio to a certain.
And now you have, which I have also a couple of them, but I have one that they're beating up now.
Versus Bob.
It's with the thing you said. I somehow said whatever. But anyway,
gotta fill him up with sand all the way.
That's the one out of your shoulder. Anyway, so
I know you gotta go fill it up.
But now it's like a Bob upper body, and then the lower is like this base that you can actually kick. It's not the hard base and all that stuff. So how many generations of Bob are there?
There's a lot of generations of Bob, but also you got to remember too, I think a lot of people, we're the only company that really covers all
martial arts.
All martial arts. So we have 6 verticals that we try to stick boundaries to, but the reality is that we try to make our products to fit the masses, to as many styles of martial arts as possible, because there's certain little verticals that just, there's only so many people that do them, and so it doesn't always make sense that we make a dedicated product line or something to fit that group. But if we have something like a Bob that's very universally usable,
right,
try to make sure that it works for all of them. So one of them is the Versus Bob, and he's got his hands in a specific way.
Right.
But it's not just for simulation of fighting; it's also simulation for guys that are doing Wing Chun and guys that are doing Krav Maga type takeaways and stuff like that. So. The main thing with him was that he's got legs and leg kicks on anybody
are huge.
And practicing that and teaching people, and then it's got self-defense. It's got like a crotch pad.
I looked over one day and I'm training this. I'm doing a private with a lady, and I'm working with her on I don't teach feel good self-defense. I've taught out of the country. I've taught in law enforcement, military. I teach real stuff, and so. I had this lady, it was her second day, so we're learning basic stuff. I hear this cracking on that same Bob, I look over and she's just like whacking him in the groin, straight up kicking Bob in the nuts. And I was like, what are you doing? She's like, this is real self-defense. And I'm like,
we do. I teach that to women in particular as well. It's like very hard to get women to just overcome like, why are we here? Look,
yeah,
you're in a serious situation. You could end up getting raped. You could end up getting domestic abuse, all that kind of stuff. And they can't practice that stuff on you. And they've got to be able to like eye gouge and to
So she literally said, I've always wanted to do that, but I've never been able to do it to anybody. And she's like, just give me a minute. And she was I was just like, okay, whenever you're ready to get back to training, let me know. But I bet she spent 10 minutes over there just kicking this Bob in the nuts. Yeah. I was like, so this is the funnest part of the training I've done in the 2 sessions. And I was like, okay, we may need to get you some counseling afterwards. So this space was born. And then at what time do you remember back being young, being in this place, like that you were in the Century facility?
Oh, I mean, I've been walking the halls here since I was born. So my dad came in and announced it to the company the day I was born. People tell me that all the time. I mean, on the loudspeakers we have here. So I've quite literally been walking this place forever. I have little childhood memories like nobody gets to do, which is very. I mean, it was a luxury, but I was like, ooh, this is like kid in a candy shop,
right?
But I mean, we built the DCs down there, and it was completely empty. Now it's huge. It's like a 150,000 square foot part of our warehouse, and I remember driving remote control cars in there, and so
yeah,
I get to be literally a little kid around here too. But then from the training aspect, it's very nice. I would still, everybody has certain things that don't ever change in their life. My family, my dad was always busy building this company. Don't get me wrong. So he was busy, as you can imagine, building a big company. He's on the road working, traveling a lot, things like that. But we've moved houses. Eventually my parents got divorced at one point in time. We've moved out of state. I've lived in different cities. But Century and this building have been the one static thing and stable for my entire life. So that's always been something really special to me. So now that I'm got the opportunity to get back to help lead the place, I'm going to take that very seriously. And it's a pressure that rides on my shoulders, which is okay. But there's 250 people that come to work here every day, and they saw me grow up, a lot of them. And so I take it very serious to make sure that they have a job.
I don't know when this was. I was always just I just held your dad and still do in high regard. Just because, one, Sensei Tripp introduced me to him, and then your dad, and Dr. Tripp, that's a different thing to those two guys and my mentors. I went to one of your expos, and your dad's like, hey, I'll help you get out there. I'll help take care of you. Dr. Tripp's going to take care of this. I'm going to take care of that. Go out there and, promote your product, promote Century. I love you, kid, and take care. And so I went out there, and and when you grow up without and then you have mentors like that, like I just that's stuff I don't forget. Like I felt like your dad was investing in me.
Yeah.
And so it's a spot. Oh yeah, because I mean I'm looking around, I'm going, look at this place, and the guy that built this has lunch with me when I come to the city, So he could have been giving me like stupid shit, like the Bob, like, and I'm just gonna suck. Really, like I'm just like 14, like okay. But I remember at some point in time, because I'd met you and I'd see you around, and he would talk about you at lunch, and I remember he like some phases where I said, so I'd ask about Mikey, and when talking about you then, it was okay to call you Mikey because you were a kid. It didn't seem weird, but I'd say, so what's up with Mikey, man? He's like, well, he's doing a lot of cleaning and, inventory, and and I was like, oh, okay. He's like, yeah, I'm going to make sure he does. He's like, I'm not one of those dads that he's going to step in and just run the company. He said, he was one of the first people I heard say that. He goes, most of the time when parents don't do it right, and they just give their kids a company, within 5 years, the kids lose the company. And he's like, he said, he's going to work his way up. And I was like, okay. Like, literally, he was like, yeah, he's sweeping the warehouse. He's doing inventory.
Sweep the warehouse for 2 years.
And then, and then I remember him saying, different things. And then I remember one day he's like, oh, yeah, man, he's progressed a lot. He's taking care of a lot of international stuff. And I was like, I don't know if time went by fast or like he went from sweeping the floor, and it was a course of years. But
Yeah.
So at what time did you just go like, yeah, I'm gonna go through the 2 years of sweeping the warehouse and cleaning and moving boxes, and he'd say he had you moving stuff around and inventory. Like, at what time did you say about, okay, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna be the next generation of Century. Do you remember that?
Well,
A moment
before I ever did have that moment, but before I ever did, in high school and stuff, I always worked odd jobs around here, and odd jobs around here are very odd. So I've done everything from sweeping floors to cleaning toilets and everything, and did all of that just like any other kid, just almost like summer jobs and earning what I could from summer to summer. But when I went to college, I graduated from OU, and I had a major in accounting and entrepreneurship, and I actually wanted to go to law school, which thank God I didn't do that. That would have been a horrible path for my life. But at that point in time, it was interesting to me, and I don't know. My dad he doesn't like lawyers. He didn't like lawyers, so he thought, my son to become one, then I could just use him. I think that was what he said.
Kind of like the La Cosa Nostra thing. We're going to raise one of our own.
Yeah, but at that point in time, I was the last. I'm the youngest in our family, and nobody had interest in running the business, and so.
So were you the second person after your dad in your family to go to get a degree?
No, after that, cousins and things like that too. But at one point, we didn't know what he was going to do with the company, and I don't think he did either. And so selling it was not off the table. And we had discussions as a family of what that would be like. And I'll never forget going to a business fair, or basically equivalent of that, when I was in college.
Oh, okay.
And my roommate in college was really smart. One of those guys, we had a lot of the same classes. I'd go to the class. He'd go out and party all weekend. I'd show up. I wouldn't party all weekend, study all weekend long. I'd show up and I'd make like a C on the accounting test or something. I specifically remember one where I made a C and he had gone to Mardi Gras. And he came back and took the test on a Tuesday, and he got back on Monday, and he got a 98 and I got a 78. And I was like, are you serious?
Right.
And I was like, and then that next week we went to a job fair, and I was like, man, we're all getting serious about this. This is real life. I don't want to do this.
So this is like your junior or senior year then?
Yeah, but just seeing all these other jobs. I was
right.
Like, I don't want to do this at all. This is so miserable. I don't want to be a stuffy job in an office forever. And do martial arts your whole life. Martial arts is something that's a skill, just like being a lawyer, just like being a doctor, even though people don't really want to admit it. But it's something that nobody can ever take away from you.
Absolutely.
Once you have that skill set, you have it for life.
Absolutely.
And I look at a lot of people that compete and don't go on to become pro and stuff like that. And it's like, what do you do with this incredible talent that you've now got that you have, you're just going to keep that in your back pocket?
Trust me, I've been heartbroken, burned, lied to. Yeah. You as an instructor of several martial arts, I just look at, you can't control somebody else's behavior, character, or future, but you look at some, I've done that, I'm just like,
I know.
What are you doing?
But I just sat back and like, wait, we have found a way as a family and as a business to make money doing this.
Right.
Enough to support my family and to support 250 people who work for us. And so I just feel like it would be a slap in the face not to take that opportunity.
So were you in college when that wow moment happened?
Yeah, it was, I think, my junior or senior year. It was when I was getting ready to take the LSAT. I did take the LSAT.
Okay.
And just took my dad to lunch and said, I don't do anything with the company. Like, what am I doing? I need to be doing this. I can absolutely do this. And he was like, you sure? And he was like, I don't want some bank account. Like, we want a legacy. We want to be able to build something big.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I think maybe he thought at that point in time that he had reached the potential that the company had. And I didn't see it that way. I thought we had a lot more to go. So that will be yet to be seen, I guess, in my generation. But martial arts is growing and it's doing well. And it's had times it's plateaued and it's had times it's excelled. And I think in times of peace, people kind of get the McDojos of the world kind of do well because all is good and it's great sport for kids and stuff. But in a time of chaos like it is right now anyway, in particular, the decisiveness and everything, martial arts tends to be a good foundation for people, not just to be, it's good to be tough, mentally tough, physically tough.
It's good in good times, it's good in bad times. And for mental, I think that for...
I think it's what people in the world need right now.
Absolutely. So. It's a vent. It's an escape. It's a culture that, I tell everybody in my gym. I was like, man, you can say anything in here you want as long as you got a smile on your face and it's with respect.
Yeah.
And we talk about race, age, color, inability, extra ability, everything. And it's just a place where we for me, even on days I think, why am I still doing this? I'll go in and it's like golf. Running a gym or martial arts is like golf. You'll be so pissed off at your game and you hate the game and why are you out here? And then you'll hit a couple good shots. You're like, man, this is so fun. I love this.
Yeah.
And so it really is. And we're so young in martial arts and as a country, we're 248 years old. Martial arts is thousands and thousands of years old. And some of your more proper, structured, what's the right word? Respectful, like Japan, like that have been doing it for the whole culture's different because I feel like martial arts has influenced the whole culture. They have a history, the samurai, all the way to. However, when you go into their places to train, and like I've been to some other, and you've been to countless countries, their training is real training. Like it's
very intense.
Very intense. And so I just hope that now more than ever, with the way the world is, we need real martial arts. We need real structure and character and with everything, with what's going on. Because I can honestly tell you, nowhere I've ever been in the world did I ever see racism or anything in the gym.
No, I know.
It's like the one place where it's filtered. You just go in and we're all martial artists in here, and today you got the best of me, and hopefully Monday you'll show up so I can try to get to you. And I think it's something that definitely, as you were saying, kids. I'm so glad my daughter's growing up. And, even talking coming down here, we were talking about your dad and you, and she was excited to come down here and see you because you're your dad's son. You own this company. I explained to her you're a lifelong martial artist. You're working with her dad now. Mm-hmm. So she has this respect that your kids will have,
It's the hope.
It's generational, and that's what we're lacking is some generational traits and character and things. So at what point in time, how many years ago did you say, okay, I'm in a training process here? Like there's a difference between just like what you did here with your dad's in his company. In the gym, I have these guys that they train for a couple of years, and all of a sudden they come to me like, I think I want to fight. I think I'm all in. When did you say, I'm all in, I'm carrying the torch?
That day we had lunch.
That day? That was the day.
So the day we had lunch, I went from doing odd jobs and, cleaning toilets and working on to
and how old were
basically
you?
back to cleaning toilets, but I had a purpose.
Oh.
But yeah. I was I was 22 probably.
So
21, 22.
Okay.
But I came back and we said, all right, well, how are we going to do this? And basically, that's at that point in time we said, if you could, how do you take somebody who's created a company and you dissect everything they've ever learned? Well, it's all damn near impossible. But the reality is when you build each one of these departments and these things from the ground up, them inside and out. So we did just that. Decided that I was going to have to work in every single department of the company for at least 1 year.
Yeah. Oh, it was a year. Okay.
At least a year. That started out.
I didn't know that.
Poorly because I worked in our distribution center for 2 years, which was fine. But distribution's one of the most important things, and I had to learn it first because we always say inappropriately, but it's the ass end of the business. So it's the last place everything comes out. When somebody messes something up in any business, including our own, it's usually in the distribution center, the last person who touches the box, who really has that opportunity to be like, something's wrong here. I probably shouldn't give this to my customer. And then you follow that back up the chain, and somebody up in the front has screwed up. It's whether it's product design, order being pulled wrong, or some kind of misprinting on the product. You had an opportunity to stop it if you knew what you were looking at and why it was wrong. But if you don't know what you're looking at and why it's wrong and why it's being shipped out improperly, then you won't ever know anything about it. So I learned that part first, and it's also the first place any of the product comes into the building. It comes overseas, so that's also a huge opportunity to screw everything up for everybody else. So I learned that part first, and then I slowly made my way through every department. And once I got to a certain point in any big business, bad stuff happens. Bad stuff and good stuff and opportunities. And so these kind of situations kept arising. The first one was our Canadian operation. We had a warehouse up there, and distribute to our Canadian customers. And that had some issues associated with it. Became very unprofitable really quickly. And so my job was all of a sudden overnight, like, go fix Canada. So I had to jump in and dissect our business, figure out we'd make money there, and did that for a while. And then right as we did that, we acquired a magazine company. It was the oldest martial arts magazine in our industry, which is Black Belt Magazine. They went bankrupt, or the company who, they didn't go bankrupt. The company who owned them had bought them and was a magazine conglomerate, and they thought it would be a fitness bolt-on for their company, and they didn't understand it. And then when it didn't work out very well, they started saddling it with all the problems associated with their company and tried to basically kill it off. And it's very important to our industry as martial artists. So an executive there gave us a call and thought that we might be a big enough company to take it over and save it. And so we did. And we owned that from 2017 till, I think, 2023. And then we sold that because we're not a media company. We did what we set out to do, which was save the magazine, modernize it, and then give it to somebody else who could keep its legacy going. Again, continues just kept problems or opportunities would come up, and I'd continue working until one day we had to part ways with our CFO, and I had to do a CFO job for a year, which I'm an accounting degree and background, but I would never want to. That's the last thing I ever want to do. But I got in and did that for a year, and that just happened to kind of coincide with time my father needed to retire, and so.
And that just happened.
That just happened about 4 months ago.
Yeah,
months ago.
I remember that I was here the day before. Yep. Ironically.
I've been involved in management for a long time, so it's more a formality. And I've got a lot of mentors in the business, so I may have a title of a CEO here, but I've got a lot of mentors and people involved in our company that have been along for the ride.
Been here forever. Most employees here
longer than I've been alive.
Yeah, most employees here stay forever.
Yeah, we have a lot of people that work 25 to 35 years.
Yeah.
So.
In fact, we noticed in the hallway, everybody, when I bring my fighters through or whatever, I always point it out to them that you have a year system in the warehouse out here based on belting. Tell us about that.
So I instituted that a couple years ago, but we basically have a belting ceremony for our employees. We have 2 gyms here that we train our employees. Anyone who will partake, it's all free to them. I wish more people would take us up on it, although sometimes I just have a hard time getting them in the gym, just like any other gym.
Right.
But it's not associated with their belts in there.
Right.
However, to have everybody else who doesn't partake in martial arts
it's a team
feel like
thing.
they have okay, this is how cool it is to have a belting ceremony.
Right.
We have created a belting system, and so after their first year, 5 years, 10 years, 15, 20, 25, 30, and then we had to go to 35 for some, they get a belt,
And it's just like real martial arts. It's white belt, blue belt.
Yeah, and we try to do it. I give it to them. I take down their old one. I put that one up and make them stand up in front of the company in our annual get-together meeting. And
again, that's a bleed over for martial arts, and that adds value and self-esteem and everything that you want in an employee, and they get to walk by that every day and say, I'm on the wall.
It's important for people. Not everybody. I wish that everybody here was a martial artist, and that's one of our goals. We hire as many martial artists as we possibly can. Anybody's listening, you guys ever want to got another odd skill of like a accountant or anything like that, and you want to work somewhere, you might as well work at a martial arts company if you're a martial artist. But we found that it's sometimes easier to make martial artists out of normal people as well. But I want everybody here to know that they're part of this bigger mission, which is if you're making a belt out here or a uniform or you're delivering a box, it's not like you're on the mat training with people, but you are helping kind of change people's life through helping this machine go, which is really inspiring people to experience martial arts and be a part of it.
And, this whole structure, this whole business model you're doing is kind of a relic because, going back that's why I was kind of like, wow, about Safeway. Like you probably thought, well, how can you be excited? My grandfather, they come from Italy, and then he grew up out in Northern California and worked in a supermarket. They sold that supermarket, family market. It was a 3R market. called 3 Hour Market in Northern California. But then he worked for Safeway out there for 35 years. And again, going back to character, of course, he's a hard-headed Italian, old school dude, but 35 years, never. It was actually ironic. I was there for his retirement. Never missed a day's work in 35 years. Was never late. 35 years. He got a cake somewhere between the size of a cupcake and a real cake, and a watch. Thanks for being on the team.
Yeah.
I mean, never late and never missed a day, and including getting called in when he was sick. I can remember one time to work because other people were sick, and he would come in anyway. But it's a generation thing like that.
That's hard, but it's also when you own a business, you run a business, or you're doing martial arts. All those things transfer because.
But people don't want you to be in a company now. Like a lot of people now. That's what I'm saying. Like this is a relic. You want to build a family. You want to have people here 25 years.
Yeah.
Most companies don't want to do that because benefits and insurance and raises and if I'm the guy, I knew your family, you hired me. Well, I'm 10 years in, and they're like, well, man, this guy's due for another raise. It's just easier to hire a young guy or 2 young guys, and we don't have to pay. And that's what people do today. So, I mean, the whole respect, everything that you say or your brand words and your core belief here, like you're doing that with your employees, and it's
100%. But it all falls on the leader's shoulders, which I take that very serious. But as I said, you're never allowed to show up late. I don't ever show up late. I try to get here as early as possible. Now we open at 6, so I don't run with that shift, but they run multiple shifts. I am here.
Okay.
Usually I'm here at 7 every day, but you got to be the first one here and the last one to leave mentality, and you can't just go take it easy. And we just don't have the luxury this era of sitting around and being lazy. It's just not going to work.
But most people
you got to grind, and
you got.
If you grind, then usually everyone who's following you is grinding.
What would you say the average age is of here?
I think our average age is somewhere around 45.
That's just awesome. Yeah.
But we have a lot of younger people. I mean, just certain jobs by nature. Our marketing department tends to be the youngest group here, but that's because the generation we are in right now is obsessed with marketing, and that tends to be the case. But our tenure there is still good. And the reality, I mean, our business is different than most, and this doesn't have as much to do with martial arts, but it's good to own your own business and be your family business because we're the only people we're trying to please is us.
Right.
So if I want to bend a rule to make someone's life easier, to have some kind of circumstance, I'm going to bend the rule and make sure that we treat everyone right. Internally, we always say, do the right thing. Inevitably, you will prevail because whether we're talking to a customer or anything like that, I want to be able to empower our team because I'm going to do it myself. I'm just going to do the right thing.
Now that the Grand Poobah, Mike Sr., Mr. Dillard, as I call him, he stepped down. What are some things that you're doing now? Because you have 2 primary brands, Century, which is the original, and Gameness, which you have acquired. And it's just awesome. It's badass.
Third one, which is called Punok.
Okay, that's since I've been here last.
Yeah, which is another, it's a WKF, like a Olympic karate brand as well.
So, and you and I have had I won't go through all of our talks, but I'm excited. I mean, what prompted me to do this was your dad. I would talk about products. He'd always ask me, well, what do you think about this? Or I remember sometimes I'd be buying stuff in the showroom, and I'd always say, hey, I'm here. And he'd say, I can't go eat, but I'll come out. I want to see what you're buying. And then I would tell him, I'd say, man, I really love this, Mr. Dillard. And I guess it's just me, but I'd be like, but this would be awesome if, or, and I'd say, well, this wore out kind of fast, and he would be like, oh, okay. He was the guy that's like, hey, dummy, we sold 10,000 units of those in the last 6 months. Your opinion doesn't matter, but it wasn't really that way. But I always, because I knew the guy that started all this, and I'm in the warehouse, and I'm like, this is all his stuff. And then I remember one time, because I've got a big tactics background, I remember he was having kind of the start of some trouble with, I don't know what the brand, but you carried some tactical bags and you carried some tactical stuff. Like it was Kravi, but it was also like tactical stuff. It's always been back in the corner. And I was like, hey man, I could, and I'd give him he'd be like, yeah, we're having trouble with that. It's it's kind of something we adopted, but it went along with martial arts, but there's people that really do this every day. And so we're kind of, and I'm like, well, what, but so my point of all that was, I don't know if it was because of, so how long was it before he retired? How many years was he building this business?
Almost 50.
Okay, so 50 years, and then I come in with all these great ideas. Yeah, nice job, kid. I think if he'd have gave me a Snuggie, he could have. And then, but he was always, and maybe he was this way with everybody. I didn't take it that way, and if he was, I don't care. I'm still, in my opinion, special to him. But like, he was always like, man, I really want you to come down and train, teach. I want you to take over classes, And I think his association with Dr. Ron Tripp, and Sensei Pat Burris in Moore, Oklahoma, they pretty well edified me. So your dad, he knew I was who I was, and so, but a lot of stuff, and I'm just going to go there. A lot of stuff was meant to either for kids, so like if you and I are in here training and banging 5 days a week, it wasn't really made for that.
Yeah.
B, it was made for karate, taekwondo-ish stuff, which from your dad's tenure to now, combat, I mean, hell, we got bare knuckle now. I coached the first bare knuckle guy in Oklahoma, and now I'm doing another one in 3 weeks. So it's changed, and for whatever, I don't know how this happened, I'm so grateful to you. I mean, you are my kind of new excitement in martial arts, because I kind of got, I kind of got, for all the reasons we already talked about, I've gotten soured, and I questioned, I'm like, why did I, all the things I could have done, could have gone overseas, I could have, and other than my best investment, and that's I turned a lot of things down to be a dad to my daughter. Before anything, I'm a godly dude, even though I don't really always come off that way as gruff as I am, and I'm a dad. After that, everything else. And so I remember at some point in time, I don't know how or why, other than maybe you saw me with your dad, but we were in the showroom, and the conversation started, and then all of a sudden it was like I just picked up with a truck full of gas. Like, we were talking about products, and you're like, oh yeah. And then maybe it was some of your excitement, because it was probably 8 months or so before you took over the company. Like, in fact, I'm redoing that right there. And then you were like, oh, exactly. I've already done that. Well, most of the time you already tell me, I've already done that, but which is probably why you're running the company. But you're in a big metamorphosis now, which I wanted that with your dad. But you see it. So tell me about that. Like you're, and I kind of see it in your face when you're not too busy to have expression on your face, but when you have time to express feeling and emotion, it's like this face. You're like, oh, hey, look at this. And then, and for me, because I've showed you some things in, from Thailand to here at my own gym. You could talk to any of my people I've trained over the years. They're like, Coach is either the most brilliant guy or he's retarded. Like, he comes up with the weirdest stuff to train with, because fighting is dynamic. Tactics and combatives and law enforcement and military, it's all dynamic. It's combative training. But real fighting, and to me, real martial arts, going back to, man, I just, Bruce Lee, he's probably one of the reasons that I didn't end up in trouble as a kid. Like, I was a backyard martial artist because of Bruce Lee. And I remember probably college, I read some stuff on Bruce Lee, and I was real active and an athlete and all that stuff. But in my nerd time, I was overwhelmed with fighting. Of course, my fighting background started because of being bullied and growing up poor. And then I got to where I was sticking up for other people. And so I've put that into my life over the years. I don't like mean people unless you're in a competition. And then I said, go be as mean as you can be. But I have done what they did, and I mean, I still find, like this piece of paper, I find napkins. I found not too long ago some stuff that I realized it was from NSU, my college days, where I was drawing stick people and trying to figure out technique and stuff. And now, when maybe my course, godly plan, whatever you want to call it, course of business has changed. Some things happened in business where I had 6,000 square feet in a mall, and the owner of the mall, they were crooked from New York to here and liars and thieves, and they basically collected all of our rent as much as they could over the last couple of years, and then they just locked the doors and gave us 5 days to get it and tried to keep our stuff. And so I've got $250,000 worth of stuff sitting in a warehouse right now, and I'm training out of another gym. And so that's a wow moment in your life. You're like, man, what am I going to do with all this? And so unbeknown to you, that little thing inside me in conversations with you, I'm like, this is awesome. Like I've kind of got that excitement about stuff, fight stuff and martial arts stuff. Because all that said, you're really changing product and usability and practicality and branding and like your dad. Of course, it's an era. Like I never wore a flat bill around him, which is me. But I'd always leave it in the car. Sometimes I never really wore shorts around him because I'm blasted with because he's older and I wanted to be proper around him, which he probably couldn't have cared less. But you're like, okay, that's all great, but now we got to make some good stuff. So tell me about that. Like, what's that like? Or did you have to do it to keep the company growing? Like, how did we come to that?
I'm going to answer two parts.
Okay.
And I'll give everybody, I don't know everybody who's listening is going to want this other first part, but
give
you the business case of everything, and then, the martial arts case of stuff. I think anybody, if you own a martial arts company, of course, we want to make the best martial arts gear possible. And it's that excitement and stuff that's like, oh, man, I want to do this and this. Well, when the company was founded, that excitement, not only, martial arts was new to America. There was no internet. It was everything was read in magazines and stuff, and it was this exciting era. And everyone's like, back when they used to make good stuff, back in the 80s. And it's like, let me tell you, it was good, but it was the first. So anything, so first time you see it is good. If I wouldn't grab that same thing and put it next to our worst thing now, the worst thing we have now is still far superior than
it's evolved.
So it's like this but the evolution of it was also followed the evolution of manufacturing in the United States. So we had great stuff in the 70s and 80s, and then globalization kind of took it over, and then the move for every business, not just ours, was, well, we got to get, everyone wants cheaper things, and they can make it just as good in China. Let's go make it overseas. Let's do this. So as things went overseas, the prices went down, which helped our industry explode. We wouldn't be, as a martial arts industry, wouldn't be where it is today if the price points were still as high as they were, because martial arts is kind of, there's some schools that do great, some schools that do bad, but in generally, if you threw a blanket around all of you, say that martial arts is a lower price point and not a cash poor industry in terms of who's going to the everyday gym.
Right.
Because there's a lot of small gyms, a lot of mega gyms, and it depends on what part of the country you're in, really.
Absolutely.
And so we had, the driving the price points down on certain things, like a gi or a belt or things like that, helped the industry explode. But somewhere along the way, things just got too cheap, and we were a victim of that as well, I think, in certain points. But it's either continue to compete in that way or get replaced, because right now the borders have been broken down in terms of global export and import, and I get them myself. I get a million Chinese vendors and Pakistani vendors that ask me if they want to make. Would you like to buy uniforms? Like, no, I sell uniforms. I make them myself. They don't even understand that, but they are breaking down those walls, and those have been commoditized, which just means that there is no difference between mine and somebody else's. It's this price point war
and branding.
And so we get a blanket for our company has gotten kind of by association, like, oh, Century, they make the cheaper stuff. Well, Century makes what our customers would like us to make, and our customers told us that we would like us to make some cheaper stuff, and so we've kind of fallen victim to that. But now, we also used to be a distributor, and I think less of a brand. And now Amazon's the ultimate distributor, so there's no use in trying to be a distributor in that way, because they're going to beat you and everything. So you fast forward to where we are now, and you think about everybody else's own experience online or Instagram and stuff. this is an era almost back to the 70s and 80s where it's like I can come up with a cool head guard and I have a company. Boom. I can take fancy photos and I can be a great marketer and I can sell it for $500. And there's like a line out the door, a very defined line of people out the door who will buy that. But it's a pretty short line. And that company probably won't be here tomorrow because they're going to sell a lot of headgears, and it's very disruptive to bigger companies like this, because by the time I can develop something to compete with it, and maybe I should have already, it's a fair argument, but by the time I develop it, everyone's going to have bought one of those, and everyone's got a $500 headgear that's going to buy a $500 headgear, and that market's doors closed. That's over. It's happened. You'll see these kind of popular. It's a fad, yes, very quickly. So what I'm trying to get us back to is back to the kind of entrepreneurial mode in terms of, hey, let's go make really great stuff that fits martial artists' needs in these niches and things like that. How we improve and run the product, not just in quality, but kind of set ourselves apart from the knockoff companies and manufacturers in Pakistan and Asia, because they're really just saying they're buying a company like ours product and reverse engineering it and just slapping a different logo on it. And that's what they're doing. So you have to be truly novel about what you're doing. So I think what Craig's seen is us going back to the drawing board, and I've just started, for the first time in a long time, we've just started creating things that there is no blueprint from. I'm just kind of saying, hey, when I'm training, and because we train every day too. A lot of people don't know that either, but we have 2 gyms here, like I said. Yeah. And we train outside of the gym, so we'll make that our own little lab and just say, hey, man, one of the things I showed you was the Muay Thai pads, just like an everyday inconvenience is putting Thai pads on. So I just want a one-strap Muay Thai pad, and I love small things like that.
And now I'm like, Bob's he's probably thinking Blacklock, but like I'll send him a picture of something in my gym or something that I developed or I created or I built, just because it's part of what I've done for 25. But I like it, and the thought that it's gonna. And I guess this may go back, because I'm nothing special, but it goes back to maybe the martial arts mindset. But I want to make it better for everybody. Yeah. And, that's like, there's a lot of people in Oklahoma in the fight world don't like me, but I just, behind the scenes with the athletic commission and everything else, I just want to make it better. Plus, I take it seriously. Like, if I'm training you and, being a part of this upcoming fight you got, and I'm not going on that Saturday night to hang out at a fight and be there with you. I'm going as your coach, as a trainer, to beat the hell out of somebody, whatever it may be, choke them, catch them, and get your hand raised. And then I'm going home. Which a lot of people that are coaches also are not martial artists, so they grew up in this new era of just fighting. Or it's not what they've done for 20 years, or even what they do full time. And it's good advice. Most of them have jobs or careers and a gym, which is pretty smart. But you've that excitement, and I'm pretty blunt. And you're, a man's man. Like, I'll tell you, I was like, well, I think that's stupid, or I don't like this. And you, as a businessman, entrepreneur, martial artist, godly guy, and just a man with cojones, you're like, oh, okay. Well, you don't have to like it, but here's why we do it. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And I don't get insulted by your comment, and I'm just like, oh, okay. So there's this bumping, and I like it, because you're coming out with some great stuff. I just like where you're going with the company. And so, and that's why I'm so stoked. I'm trying to get it in other countries, and I'm trying to help you come up with something cool and be a part of it. So what, if you can, because it's kind of probably broad, like, what are you trying to do right now? Like, somebody said, what's your goal right now, Mikey? What are you doing?
I mean, our goal right now is we've kind of restructured our product development process. So making sure that we make more quality things and testing them in the way they should be tested, and thinking through why we're creating what we're creating. And then, so that's on the product side. And then on the kind of, I guess, distribution and logistics side, we're just trying to we're a very big deal in the United States, but we're not a big deal to the rest of the world. Mm-hmm. And in 2019, we opened up our European division. which is headquartered in Dortmund, Germany. And so we're trying to go global with our brand. We've always been global, but it's through a different model, and it's kind of not been as successful as it could have been. So we're really kind of just exploding in multiple directions in terms of our distribution and getting our hands in product kind of all over the world. And I think that's the next evolution for us, because when we start getting volume, that we can do that, we can have more fun with our stuff and make better products whenever we got more people to buy it. So it's been inspiring.
Are you still, is your core, with everything you're saying, is it still karate, taekwondo, kids, the little family gyms, or are you expanding and is the world allowing you to go into more of the fighting combative arts, the Thai, the MMA, the jiu-jitsu, like the more combative arts? Is that ever going to be a equal, or is that a future goal to be in that industry?
I think it will, because I think that I think that the market will tell us that. And by the market, I just mean that I think that martial arts is kind of going that way. And so the traditional and the older ways are kind of, they're surviving or dying in their own situation right now. So I think a lot of those guys are even like, maybe I should start offering this class and this class and this class. And they're starting to train in that way. And so I think it's going to start tailoring itself. But yes, we sell our products in six different markets, six different types of martial arts.
Nice.
Traditional martial arts is what we call our core, which is your typical school. But in that, we focus in like student uniforms, things just for the beginner and their first class kind of deal. We'd have sport martial arts is the next one, which is like tournament taekwondo, tournament karate, and like point fighting and things like that. We have striking.
Would jiu-jitsu fall underneath that?
No, striking, and it has its own.
Okay.
Striking and MMA. So we put boxing, MMA, to a degree kickboxing in another vertical, because a lot of those products kind of dissect and they overlap each other.
Right.
We put wrestling and grappling and jiu-jitsu into another one.
Okay.
Self-defense into another.
So you're still going in that direction.
It will always be part of our company. And then fitness is the last one.
Okay.
We draw the line at fitness in terms of
fitness is a huge competitive industry.
But we at one point in time got approached by Zumba Strong. It's like a Zumba version. It was like, we're not dancing in martial arts. We're not doing that.
Right.
So we put up the walls there. I mean, we help out with a lot of boutique boxing gyms
and
things like that. But that's kind of where we draw the line. And the other line we draw is we don't go out on the range. So in combatives, we do a lot of work. But at a certain point in time, we found ourselves out doing a lot of disarms and stuff with live rounds.
Oh, yeah.
And that is great. There's a vertical there. I'm not saying that it's not good to go train there, but that's where we draw the line. We try to stay off the range.
And leave that to people that do that every day. So, Mikey, what's your next what are you excited about? A country, a product? Like what are you excited about today?
I'm really excited about this, we call it WAKO, WAKO. So that's an organization that we are the platinum sponsor for. It's predominantly in Europe. It's grown there for years, and they've started really making a global expansion. And we're trying to help them grow their reach in the United States, but they have a lot of members. And why I'm most excited about it is because I spend a lot of time at karate tournaments and stuff, and as I said, we're rooted in traditional martial arts. And, it's been watered down a little bit to a certain degree, but other times I hate the argument when people watch these tournaments and they're like, well, let's just play fighting and stuff like that. And what I like about WAKO is that it's got a series of different divisions, and those divisions ultimately lead to K1 style kickboxing. And when you go to a tournament, you've got, they've called them tatami sports and then ring sports, but the tatami sports are just that. It's point fighting, continuous fighting, and it's kind of a step-up rule set for 3 different divisions on the ground. And then there's 3 different divisions in the ring. And so it allows people to, once they get up in the ring, they've kind of gone through a certain stages and process of learning these different techniques, so that by the time they get to K1 style rules and they're having a full-on fight, they know what they're doing. They spend a lot of ring time. They've had a lot of matches. So these guys are doing 5-10 fights in a tournament over a weekend. And so they've got a lot of experience in being with different people. And by the time they get to K1, they're having very good fights. So it's not just your average amateur who's only got 1 or 2 real bouts under his belt. He's got 20, 30 fights that he's got exposure to, and then it's really developing into a well-rounded group. But
So there's rumor boxing, the International Olympic Committee is looking to take boxing out of the Olympics. America hasn't done good in boxing forever, which is horrible. I mean, we could go into that. I think that pay-per-views killed it. I mean, I remember if pay-per-view would have been $25 when I was a kid, or 20, I never got to see Muhammad Ali, Sugar Ray, Hearns, Hagler. I mean, and traditionally, if you look at where boxing comes from, the boxers come from the neighborhoods and the families and the socioeconomical incomes that couldn't afford, even today, $85 pay-per-view fight to watch Canelo or Pacquiao. So I think it's kind of killed itself. And then, yes, MMA has come along. And, we won't go into a Dana White discussion here, but, the good and bad of Dana, whatever it be, he has been kind of an old La Cosa Nostra like mob guy. He, if there's another combat sport, he'll just dump a ton of free fights over the top of it, or buy that combat sport out. But so many people get to see so much MMA now, and it's so much free MMA, and so it's killing boxing. And then I think also I'm going to do a whole podcast on this in and of itself, but I think that as a culture, I mean, MMA, there's a lot of, I mean, even my guys that train their ass off, I got a couple right now, or a few that I'm just so excited about in kickboxing and MMA. But, boxing is as well as a pro MMA fighter should be, but it's just tough. The training's tough.
Yeah.
And it's easier to get somewhere in MMA right now than boxing. Boxing is, to me, is just so political. The money is, just from being a cut man and being around top promoters, and I've been around, been top rank ESPN and Showtime, HBO, and I listen and I watch promoters and I listen to fighters, and a promoter now, or a manager now, or a promoter manager slash, they may put $250,000 into a guy before anybody even knows him. And like, if you and I are fixing to box, and you're a badass dude coming up, my promoter or my manager may pay you to fight me on a promotion, but they'll pay me more just to get you a fight.
Yeah.
So the guy's the up and coming guy who should be making the money. I'm making more than you. And then they pay the promotion to put you on the fight to get you known. And then it's so, I've learned all this. I'm just like, man, this is horrible. And then I see like, like I worked as a cut man here for Top Rank on a fight. And they, 3 world title fights, 6 different countries or 7 represented. Couldn't even fill the Hard Rock in Tulsa, Oklahoma. It's just changed so much. And so I there's a chance that it's not going to be in the Olympics, and they're talking about kickboxing, or I don't know what they're going to term it as, Muay Thai, or Muay Thai kickboxing, or K1 Thai.
Vaca went through the bid. They got recognized this year.
So tell us about. I knew you knew some of that, so that's what I'm getting at. So that could be huge, and I think I still love to watch old boxing matches. I love it. I don't like the business, but I love boxing still. I'll still watch it over most MMA. But getting kickboxing into the Olympics, so kickboxing or Thai fighting or kickboxing, whatever you want to call it, is like soccer. America's way behind the power curve. Like just now, this last weekend, the tournaments that were going on here, and then World Cup's coming here in 2 years, and now, and I heard commentators talking about, like, they're like, America is now a soccer country. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's, and I remember playing soccer growing up. They got it in my high school the year after I graduated. I played in college, and I was like, but compared to the rest of the world, man, that's football is their thing. Like, live and die, cry, celebrate. It's like, well, now kickboxing is the same way. Kickboxing and Thai fighting around the world has been huge compared to here. Well, now if it goes into the Olympics, I think it's going to change. So does that first of all, what do you know about that? And second of all, does that help you as a company? And will you think it'll help gyms here grow?
I mean, first, well, it'll probably help us as a company, but it's just because we get to, anything that's good for martial arts is good for my company, and also anything that's good for martial arts means more people are taking martial arts, whether it's boxing, kickboxing. I want that to succeed. So I'm always on board with anything that's a movement to help participation in martial arts. But I think that, one, I know that boxing has had its issues, and I'm sure that I think they are going to remove it, it's my understanding, but it will be back, I'm sure. And it's not, they just need to get reorganized.
Well, so what people may or may not know is the IOC, the International Olympic Committee, and I don't know the number, but let's say there's, in the Summer Olympics, let's say there's 223 sports. They can't just go put 224 sports in. Like, they can't add. They drop a.
No, they try to define it. It's already got so much stuff.
Right.
So they have to be very specific about it.
But
they'll add and drop and stuff. But I'm just saying they'll find a way to make. So there's always sports moving in and out.
Right.
Karate got it for 1 year and then it got taken away, and it's not because I don't even know why karate ended up taking away.
But they didn't replace boxing.
No.
So
but
this is
they
the
tried
first
to do
time.
kickboxing. They're just always shuffling things around.
Okay.
But the reality is that I think that boxing found itself in some of the stuff that I've seen and just understand about this now is that everyone's got to understand that any sport in any other country, we have this view from America like it's our way or the highway. It's not. The rest of the world operates totally different.
Yeah.
There's a lot of government spending involved in sports, and in particular, martial arts is old school, and for some reason people associate it with violence as in like war and think it can get out of hand and people can get actually hurt. And I think that they don't understand that it's a sport and it's different. But because governments are involved, everyone's got different dollars being allocated and stuff, and therefore it has the potential to be corruptible.
Right.
And so I think that that's some of it's my understanding that boxing has found itself in some ways, but that they are trying to work through reorganizing things and so they can get themselves back into the Olympics. But by being recognized by the Olympics is very powerful, and I think what the United States does do wrong, which is very controversial, is that sometimes you gotta we're different from those other countries because even in Europe they're democratic countries, but they operate a little differently, and they step in and they do have a lot more government control on certain things, but they're influxing that with money and funds. In the United States, we've somehow got the government part, but without the funds.
Right.
And so I think that in the U.S., we really just need to cut the red tape and let the government move aside and let capitalism kind of do its thing. Because you look at the UFC and why it's grown so much. Yes, people are complaining about the fighters not getting paid and certain things like that, but it's grown because, it's just the perfect capitalism at its finest. Just like you've got Dana, who understands the business and what the business needs, and he's not giving the money away. Yes, the fighters may deserve more, but he is putting a lot of that back into the business, and it is growing because he's doing it the way it is. And with the disorganization of boxing and not having there's a lot of leagues, there's a lot of titles, there's a lot of belts, but there's no singular, there's a lot of promotions too, but everyone only seems to care about one. Mm-hmm. And so there's no prevailing group because a lot of people are just getting, they want to do their own promotion and there's no rules around it. And they've got a million different hands in it taking the money. And by the end of it, the fighter's left with nothing. The promoter's kind of mad because he didn't get much either. And then, we got a big audience, but what's that work for? And no one understood it. And we didn't get enough pay-per-view buys. It's like, there's no centralized group or people that are moving that forward.
So talking about that right there, something popped in my head. Give me your opinion. We've kind of talked about it, you and I briefly, but the whole what Jake Paul's doing. When he first started, I was like, because I'm old school pure, I'm like, oh my God, this Disney, YouTube, Instagram. I was just like, blah. And then I sat back and I started watching. Now I'm not a fan of the path he's taking to become this boxer, but what he's doing is he's putting a lot of up and coming fighters on cards, and he's the hype, and his silly circus fights that most of them have been, but he's paying young boxers a lot of money. They're getting known. They're getting on cards they may never have gotten on, so now I'm like, well, if this circus monkey guy wants to do this, but it helps boxing and it's helping young guys, and there's less politics in it. I love it. And now through some of my contacts, I'm hearing like some people that help manage him and stuff. They're like, Jake Paul's really training. Like he's training his ass off, and he's trying to be a better boxer. Like he really wants to be a boxer. And then I heard some numbers, and I may be off on this, but they're talking about how many more hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of 16 to 26-year-old people are watching boxing in his events. They have never watched boxing before. And I'm like, well, if you'd have told me or anybody that some guy started with Disney and YouTube and all that was going to help rebuild boxing, I'd have thought you were nuts. But do you think that that's helping boxing?
I think it's helping because it's getting money in people's hands. My only criticism is that I think Jake Paul's done an awesome job in getting money in people's hands. And like I said, he is a good fighter because, I mean, if you had that much money and you didn't have to go to work every day, and you trained every day, and you got to fly all the best people in
to help you.
I bet
Yeah,
you're
he's
pretty damn good,
better.
pretty
I heard
quick.
he's getting better.
Your learning curve.
The only guy he ever bought, the only boxer he's boxed, he lost to Fury.
Yeah.
But
in general, the only problem with I think what he's doing that he has to probably come to a decision about is that he said it's got to be a business and it's got to be really sustainable. And what he's doing doesn't sound like it's sustainable to me from what I understand, because he is cutting these guys checks and stuff, but nobody's talking about if they're breaking even or doing anything. And I think, and maybe he carries the weight for every card to make it break even just by being associated with it.
I don't know the business end of it,
but if I think the next move for him, I'm surprised that like a Days In or somebody hasn't, or DAZN, I don't know, depending on how you say it, hasn't come in and partnered with him and cut him in and say, hey, look, let's come to terms on a deal.
You mean like a DeBella?
Yeah, like you guys we're top rank, any of those
guys.
Just come in and say, hey, look, you buy half the company once you're involved in it. You keep being the face of it and do an incredible job, and we're going to be the business behind it to make sure that we have a league now, or we have an ongoing unit to help support
a feeder
the fights.
program, all that kind of stuff.
Because without it, as soon as he stops having the fight or is not on one of the cards, it may dissipate.
With there's a lot of stuff that's real flashy out there. There's several brands like Hayabusa and all those things. Those guys, I mean, some of them have popped up in the last 10 years out of nowhere, and they're these big, huge brands now. And, you even see people like, typically Clete Reyes and all these were the boxing glove forever, and now all of a sudden they're wearing these. You told me you kind of stay a little out of the mainstream of boxing because of the titles and the Everlasts and the has even though they're selling MMA shorts and gis and how are you managing now? Because there wasn't that with your dad coming up so much. How are you managing these companies like that? And there's some that pop up and go away. I mean, it's crazy. But are you just staying in your lane, and are they not really in your lane, or how does that?
I would say they're not. We have different customers.
Okay.
I think that our company strives to be the gym owner's purchase, and I guess we're becoming more of a brand, so I think we're getting more of the actual athletes are buying our stuff on our website and through other means. But in reality, those are great, and I love them. I'm going to take sales no matter what.
Right.
But I think that you're always chasing after something that's going to change tomorrow if you keep chasing our competitors and what they're trying to do.
Right.
So, yeah, I just try to stick moving forward on
which
what
is a
we
good
think is right, and don't get distracted.
Word of advice for any business.
Yeah. Don't chase after stuff, or else you're going to end up being a million different directions and nothing you're actually proud of.
What is, as the owner of the company, as we wrap up, like what are you doing right now? Right now, what's your what's your day like right now, and what are you most working on?
Right now, I'm working on getting product to market. I mean, there's been a lot of global logistics and stuff that's caused problems and things. Got election coming up. All those things present problems for any business. But
is this
even
some still ripple effect from COVID, or is this just
it's a little bit
the mark, just the world?
It's honestly, it's got a lot more to do with the election, but it's kind of it's logistics has to do with that. A lot of stuff just has to do with who wins that and what the world looks like after it.
So some rumor. Well, I won't say rumor because I've talked to people on both sides, but I hear a lot of people in your position, and you can go as far with this as you want. I don't care. They want Trump because I've heard that with what he did with China, he's wanting to take some things away from China and make it better for us. And I've heard there's companies going right across the border in Mexico and it's a growing opportunity for both of our countries for manufacturing and things. Like it's the sunrise down the road is people wanting to maybe manufacture in Mexico because of you don't have to come across the big pond. You don't have to the tariffs, which I agree and disagree with. I have my own line of athletic tape, Vicious Athlete, Vicious Fighter. And I know what it's funny because I've talked to you about that, my one little product. And it's like, to you, it's like, oh, yeah. I did that as a kid. Like, I get it. It's a big thing for me.
It's all complicated.
Yeah, but it is complicated. But I can't imagine if it was just right there.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to come across the pond. It doesn't have to go, into these big ports, leave a port in, China, come across on a barge. I was so blessed during COVID. My stuff didn't get caught on a barge. Did you get stuff caught? Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Probably because I didn't buy what you guys buy.
Yeah. Having thousands of them.
But it seems like, and I don't care, I'm not talking Democrat, Republican. I'm talking about business. It seems like if Trump gets in, it may make things, that globalization, that market, is it going to help somebody like you?
I think both of them are different. It really depends. The outcome is different for each, and unfortunately, got to be prepared for both, or have a little bit.
So how are you?
Both decisions already have in place. So we're looking for manufacturers in Mexico, but I'm also looking for manufacturers in Vietnam and other places because I don't know what's gonna I just don't know what's gonna happen.
Do you see things changing? China not being long term the place that everybody goes to, not just for you.
It's been made very clear that doing business in China is going to be more difficult. So might as well come to terms with that sooner rather than later. The problem is developing those relationships took 15 years to begin with. So moving them is not easy.
So you need to start now for 10 years.
Well, we started 5 years ago and it's still not.
Awesome.
We're divesting away, but it's just going slow. I mean, it's just hard. You got to learn. You have to be able to trust these people. You can't just hand them millions of dollars business overnight. Yeah. And so it takes time, but we'll adapt no matter what. And each person has their own downfalls. So tariffs are not good for us either. And the reality of it is everybody wants to fight with kind of economic warfare, which is fine. And we'll make those adjustments as we need to, but it throws the equilibrium off in terms of what it's like. You go one side and everyone's like, yeah, put some tariffs on them.
Oh,
the other side's like, yeah. I'm like, you guys are everyone who's yelling right now is paying for that.
Yeah, exactly.
Because we can't take that overnight. It can happen overnight, and we can't absorb that overnight. And so you have to pass it on to the consumer.
Right.
And you talk about inflation, that's exactly what happened. So that's a little bit more businessy than I want to hear, but that's the reality.
Do you hope your kid, you have a little one, do you hope he follows in your footsteps with the company, you think?
I think I want him to do whatever makes him happy, but he's going to have to do martial arts. I mean, that's like a fundamental, you got to read and write, and you got to learn to defend yourself. So that's how it is in our house, and that's how it will be for him.
Are you, and no disrespect to Mr. Dillard, I mean, I know he was on the road a lot, but are you trying to do things differently now that you have the company and your dad was Mr. Dillard, and he was gone and all that? I mean, I talk to you weekly to buy or try weekly, and you're always going somewhere. Are you trying to focus on maybe more time than maybe you got from your dad? Are you trying to do things a little differently?
I spend a lot of time with my kids. I'm definitely no concern with that, but I'm trying to build things out so that we have reliable people and kind of our own superstars in every area of our business, and some of that means overseas so that I don't have to always be there. But right now we're building a lot, and so I'm building a foundation right now that's taking my personal presence to be a part of, and that sometimes you gotta nothing replaces an in-person handshake in a real meeting.
Right.
So you've got to go over there and do those things yourself. But I think over time those people are starting to step up, and we'll be able to. I'll be able not to travel as much, but look, martial arts is global kind of language. People don't realize that, but the same warm-up I do in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, I go down to Rio de Janeiro, and they're doing the same warm-up. I mean, I don't have to speak Portuguese to get on the mat and train with somebody, and there's something special about that. And so as long as you're in the business of martial arts, I think it's more like, when can my son finally get old enough to start coming with me?
Oh, man.
Which I didn't do a lot of that with my father, which I wish I did.
Right.
And I think it was just because he felt like, that was disruptive to my education and things like that. But now it's easy. It's much easier now to get across the world in a moment's notice. So he'll definitely be coming to me and learning that way.
Last couple of things. One, I thought about this when we originally started talking about doing this. It's been several months, and in that interim, I've lost my dad, and it made me think about Mr. Dillard. Is there anything that you really want to accomplish, or do with the company, either as a person or as the next generation's business, that you would want to see happen before he passed? Like, you may never even thought about that stuff, but like, you know, one day he's going to take his last breath, and is there anything that you want to see, have him see with your accomplishments before that happens?
I mean, the main thing you've got to let your kids see before you hand something like this to them is that things are done the right way, that you've got no debt and then risk of losing stuff, and that it can be run when you're not around.
Right.
And so I think that my father did that for me, and I hope to do it for him. But, you know, if you ask me if it was ready to do that tomorrow, I'd say absolutely not. So
Right.
it maybe never really feel that
And your
way.
dad's how old now?
He's 75.
And he still trains, yeah?
Yeah, he still trains every day.
He still comes up here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we still train together every day.
But he won't give you his office.
No. I don't want his office.
Yeah.
I decided that. I'm good on that. But
he's got this big office, big desk, you know, nice. It's the one I was brought into when I met him, and I remember you took the company. I was like, yeah, but I still not my office. It's still his office.
I don't want his office.
Last thing, tell us, Century Martial Arts game. Like, tell us how do we get there? What are we looking for? The brands, the websites.
Yeah. So Century is the parent company. It's the behemoth that we built everything around, and I think Century we sell 12,000 unique items, so we sell a lot of stuff. But for any martial artist that you're looking for, and you own a school and you're looking to go to the gym with stuff, Century is kind of the brand that has stuff that's gonna make sure and hold up every day. That's commercial grade, that is great for school environments. There is some retail stuff as well, but if you're looking for things that are unique to the sport you're in or the style you're training in, then that's why we have these different brand pieces. So for Century, we have a highest line of stuff. It's called our Creed line of equipment, and that's what I train with, because I'm kind of a hybrid martial artist as well.
Right.
I do MMA, I do Thai kickboxing, and I do traditional karate as well. So I've got a lot of Century products for me. I also do jiu-jitsu. And so we have Gameness, which is one of the biggest, was one of the biggest gi companies in the United States before we owned it. Now it definitely is.
Right.
And so Gameness, it's a specific tune to detail in terms of jiu-jitsu competitions and jiu-jitsu training. And that's both a no-gi and a gi. So, you know, when I train jiu-jitsu, I'm always wearing my Gameness stuff.
Right.
Punok is dedicated to tournament-style karate and sport karate. So what that means is they sweat a lot, and they have very lightweight material, and that is still traditional. Mm-hmm. And so those guys have some of the most unique fabrics and things that are being developed in martial arts.
Awesome.
We kind of leading the way on that side of the industry. So all this new technical apparel, that stuff is all in our Punok line, and that's what it's focused on. So everything's got its own deal, and we even do mats. So our mat company is great. We have some of the best designers.
Yeah,
help get people.
I wish. Yeah, when I started, I wished in that, because I won't give him a plug, but I mean, they were the top. You know, he was an Olympian, top mats. They were awesome.
Yeah.
But man, yeah, mats have come a long ways from my high school wrestling days to what the
wrestling
mats, the flex rolls and all the lightweight mats that are just so much better now. And I notice them out in your showroom. I'm just like, man.
And they're expensive. And especially if you're in Oklahoma, I imagine a lot of people who listen to you, they're in Oklahoma, then we've got all our mats here in our warehouse, so you can save on all the shipping and freight associated with that. And then we're some of the best wall pad makers. So we do all our wall pads here. And they're custom, and we lay out the designs and stuff. Here, we've got a huge wall. I mean, it takes a lot of space to do mats because you got to lay them out. And so we're designing those all, laying them out, making sure they're perfect before they ship. And you can save a lot of money by doing that. Because I know that when you open up Academy, the number one thing is the mats. That's your biggest expense. So
yeah, that's awesome.
Century mats, Punok, Gameness, Century.com,
yeah,
all those.
That's their.
You can go to any of
the
those.
products. I've watched them grow. Having a gym for 25 years, I've just watched it, and now I'm just so excited about you, Mikey, taking it and running in the next generation. And locally, you're involved locally too, and we're gonna maybe hopefully work on some things together. I just the Midwest it's hard to build fighters here. You know, I talk with Top Rank, and they're like, they don't even know if they want to come back because, like I said, they can't even fill out a show with 3 world title fights and 6 countries represented here. I know you kind of the same Pat. You want to see it grow. You're behind the scenes. And you don't care if it's boxing, kickboxing, MMA. You just want it to grow. And I say all the time, again, it doesn't build me a great fan base, but we have a lot of paid amateurs or paid. What's the right way of saying it? Paid amateurs that are pros here in the Midwest. And I've watched them go over the last couple of years to bigger platforms, and they just don't last. What do you think needs to happen? And I know it has to have something to do with population. Like, I have a standing offer now to go up to the Northeast. I've been offered other places to go. I mean, I'm here. This is what I do. Do you know from what you've seen growing up, and I mean, can we ever make the Midwest an East or West Coast when it comes to fighting? I mean, what has to happen?
I think Texas has the population, so I think that argument is not necessarily always correct. Although I like Oklahoma, I wanted to come here, but I understand that we only have so many people and so many people willing to fly here to go watch a fight. But I think that the regulation's the biggest thing, and I think a lot of people don't like right, wrong, or indifferent. They just don't like dealing with commissions, and so I think that.
But I've had fighters in New York, New Jersey. I've been in Vegas. I mean, as a cut man, or I actually had fighters competing, and I think there's other places that are way more strict than Oklahoma. Like,
there are.
Yeah, I mean, it's way tougher, but there's history. I mean, you know, like Atlantic City. I mean, that's just known in New York and Detroit. Now, I don't know much about their commission, but I hear people gripe and I'm going to defend them. You know, I mean, they're also in a new developmental stage like you, rebuilding, and some new people are in. But I mean, the commission wants it to grow. It's how they make their money. I just don't know how to make it bigger and better. Like,
yeah, but there's other ways. The cities and the states can incentivize promotion stuff to come.
I see.
It's just, I think we're still in an era which some of the cities and the states don't. I think that they don't think highly of an MMA promotion coming to town. It's not a good image, or maybe they just don't really understand it. So sometimes it takes lawmakers. I mean, in Oklahoma now we have Mark Wayne Mullins he's an ex-fighter, and he kind of understands it, but he's on the federal government side,
right?
And I think that Austin's got kind of its first perfect mixture of stuff that's happening. That maybe it's going to become a Midwest kind of fight capital because it's got so many gyms. I mean, I know that Joe Rogan moved there, and maybe that's got something to do with it. But
booming stuff
the gyms that have all opened up around there have created enough of a fan base that, you know, everyone. There's so many people training in one area. Well, then when a fight happens, they actually want to all go, and so that's what you see in Florida, and obviously in Vegas, it's just, you know, it's the fight capital, but it's because people can bet on it. So all those things kind of coming together and happening in one location.
I think it may be perception. I mean, I just see us as the, you know, patriotic grit. You know, we're the heart of the universe that in the country. But I also know that like I said, you know, I was a cut man on the last Top Rank fight here, and it's had some incredible fights on it, and there wasn't one media, not one news channel, not one newspaper. Nobody covered it, and it's a Top Rank world title fight night. 6 countries I think were present. Not one media covered it. So, and I know we're college football. I mean, you know, but. Is it because of perception, you think, from your background?
I think it is. I mean, I think people just don't understand it. They don't know. I mean, the average person walking on the street still doesn't know how to go to a fight, where the fight is, all that kind of stuff. So until it gets more mainstream, which it is, but it's got to be less UFC oriented.
So you think boxing has a chance to grow faster in the Midwest and kickboxing maybe than MMA for the big platforms?
I do, because I don't think that the MMA world's going to focus back here. They've also not been successful, from my understanding. So the UFC's, they're not having any Oklahoma City cards anytime soon.
Right.
And they have before. But
Yeah.
They were
They
were disappointed.
I think it was number 5 or number 6.
Yeah.
From when they started was here in Tulsa.
Yeah.
In fact, ironically, the gym that I'm training out of now and training my fighters out of now, the Gracies, all them guys, they went to this gym to actually the same mats, same everything are still there to train, and it makes you think. I'm like, man, we haven't evolved. We've gone backwards here in Oklahoma.
Yeah, right.
I mean, there's 2 or 3 major events, or there's, I'd say 2 cards in Oklahoma.
Yeah.
They're the primary cards. Then we have some secondary cards, and then of course Bellator comes in once in a while, whatever. But it's just, you don't see like the East and West Coast, just the love and the crowds. And so I assumed it was populist demographics, and I just thought maybe the history of boxing, Detroit, but like even Jim's gone. Like it's stuff's dying around the country.
But you got to think. I mean, what I'm saying is, and Oklahoma City, I know, is having this discussion right now. But there's a big difference between having a fight here and them saying, "Oh, we want to rent out Chesapeake Arena. We're gonna have a great fight." Okay, it's gonna be $150,000 for the venue, and big difference than if the state says, "We really want you to come and have a fight at the Chesapeake Arena. It's not gonna cost. It can cost you nothing. We'll pay for the arena." Now it's $0. Everything's profit. That's how you incentivize promotions to come, and that stuff does take place in other states.
So we need to,
because in reality, as long as the masses that fill up that arena are in town,
it's going to make
people are going to spend their money for the city, and
so it comes back through taxation and transportation and all that.
And
stuff.
they don't have that same mindset when they have that about fighting as they do about basketball
other business stuff
and other things that are more mainstream. So as that starts to click and that starts to turn and fighting becomes more of a business, they start to realize, oh, these guys will spend money when they're in town too. There's other things for them to do just to go to the fight.
And I asked that, I know he's a company guy and all that stuff, but he's involved in other things outside of this walls of Century Martial Arts, and he wants it to grow. And so I know that on the political end and the financial end, people are like, why is he asking that? Because you're in all that. Like there's a part of you that really wants things to grow, and because of who you are, you be in circles that why it's not or what needs to happen. And so that's why I wanted to ask you that question.
Yeah.
Well, man, I just want to be. I tell you all the time, I want to be a bigger part of what you're doing, and I live a little ways away, but I just want to grow with you. I want to be a part of you. I'm endorsing your stuff, man. I like the way it's going, and it's not because I knew your dad or. I mean, if I didn't think you were a legitimately awesome guy and you had great products, I wouldn't. I just can't. I won't do it. I wouldn't be endorsing your products and be looking on YouTube and Instagram. We have our own YouTube channel. Please like it, share it. I'm doing a lot of. In fact, right here, home base, Century and Gameness, we're doing a lot of technique stuff. My technique is. Definitely unorthodox. It's a mixture of multiple martial arts I've gone through in 25 years. So, like, we're about to help a guy, Brandon Shelton. He's just qualified for the USA Sambo team, and we're going to be doing a lot of Sambo technique. But I'm being, it's somebody walked off with my Sambo stuff years ago, but I'm using the Gameness gi and Gameness shorts to go get him ready for that and train with him. We're going to be doing a lot of videos right here with the Gameness. Got a Gameness gym and a Century gym right here on the facility, so be looking out for that stuff. The technique is not really what you see on everything else. It's more combative oriented, and it's a mixture of ninjutsu, judo, sambo, wrestling, Thai fighting. It's the things that I've studied for 25 years and ranked in. So it's going to be a little different, and I'd love to get your feedback, good, bad, indifferent, positive. Just be respectful when you comment. It can be a bad comment. Just be respectful. I'm looking forward to it growing. And, man, I'm looking forward to growing in your brand and endorsing your brand, helping you with some products. I'm excited because you're excited. And I'm excited also because, I loved your dad and I still do. And now you took it over. And honestly, I guess being the martial artist or never forgetting where I came from, just the fact that, you paid attention to me and you could have said, oh, that's one of my dad's friends. But you didn't. You embraced me and I'm excited about that. And that's why we're here. And so let's grow, man. And I love the Gameness. So we'll end with this. A lot of people don't know. I've been telling everybody to let the Gameness grow inside of you. I just when I'm coaching my guys, we talk about controlled anger and focused violence. And if you're in a combative sport, and through my nonprofit, I deal with some adverse kind of people, but I'm like, there is a time and a place to be violent and be tough and aggressive. And that's the only place is in a gym or in a competitive environment, not on the street. And so, your gameness, a lot of people probably don't even know what the name gameness stands for, where it comes from. But so I'm telling my guys, let the gameness rise up in you. And so tell them real fast before we end what gameness means or where it comes from.
Gameness is a term they use for when dogs are fighting.
We don't condone that.
Don't condone dog fighting.
Yeah, don't run crazy on that.
But you ever see the Gameness dog? That was back before when the company was founded. It was founded in Brazil, and those guys had adopted that as a logo. But Gameness is when two dogs are in a dog fight. When one of them is really good, to say it's got gameness.
Yeah,
that's what we say. So it's like
we're
a dog.
Yeah,
Gameness guys are
it's
dogs.
Cool logo. We're not promoting dog fighting. Don't kill us with all that stuff. But it kind of goes with the old saying, it's not the size of the dog in the fight, it's the size of the fight in the dog.
Yep.
I've seen that in combatives. I've seen it in this country, out of this country. I've seen it in guys that train, and I love it. And it's, Century's kind of a more proper, structured, martial artsy karate. I know the founding, like your dad. Like I said, I would cover my tattoos. And Gameness, kind of the let your ink fly. It's a little more edgy. Martial arts edgy. So I love that, man. Just let the gameness grow in you and go out there and train and hit up these websites. And
yes, sir.
And
appreciate you guys.
People, do you have a place they can go? I don't know if you do that, but just your comments and
just centurymartialarts.com.
Okay,
that's the best place for the product stuff, and then we're on Facebook, Instagram, all that stuff. So
awesome, man. I appreciate you.
Of course,
I love you.
Thanks,
like
sir.
I did your dad, and let's make this grow. I'm excited about it.
Yeah, man.
Thanks
appreciate
for being
you.
here. Yes, sir.